Welcome back to the channel, you guys. This is your girl, Wicked Raider 22, trying to get a video in that's actually been bouncing around in my mind for quite a while. I'm taking a look at one of my free-to-play accounts, and this is one of the things about Raid Shadow Legends that I know personally I've run into. And I told you guys before, the benefit of running more than one account is the exposure to champions, number one, but it's also the ability to go in and to really modify your gameplay. So unlike my pay to play, where there are certain strategies I will use, there are certain impulse moments I definitely will have. This is one of those things that with each competition, each tournament, each event, I find myself thinking about more and more. Number one, it's because as a new player, your resources are limited. Take a look at the gear. Do not come for my gear. I told y'all this is an early account. Like we haven't even gotten to the point where we can upgrade automatically on this account. But something else you will notice because of the way I'm using resources on this particular account, I've tried to be very strict about the number of champions that I upgrade at one time. It's one of the ways to push your account forward a lot quicker than if you are focusing on too many champions and spreading yourself extremely thin. And so this is my account that I started with my initial champion of Galette, of course. Sniper is always the second champion that you will come into. And every champion since then, I've kind of used, upgraded, and then I have moved away from those champions as I progressed. During my last tournament events, something happened for this account that I didn't expect. Number one, I pulled Mordecai. And Mordecai is one of those champions going through, looking at the ratings, very specific as to where people are using him. But this is something I want you guys to pay attention to. Sometimes you run into a champion that has atrocious numbers, and sometimes these ratings are well deserved, depending on the champion. The other thing, though, you want to keep in mind is sometimes your ratings are predominantly coming from players that are late mid game to late game. They're just way further than you may be. And so when you're trying to gauge whether a champion is worth it or not, whether they're going to deserve those resources and the amount of time, especially when you're free to play, keep in mind where you are compared to where the advice may be coming from. Now, even pay to play, my account is currently at level 56, I do believe. And so I'm starting to push through Doom Tower a little bit. I'm starting to get through those faction wars, making some progress. My first free to play account is mid 40s as far as level. It's right behind my pay to play. But how those accounts run is completely different. For example, Mordecai is a champion. Depending on where I am in the game, he can be extremely helpful. So if I avoid going to reviews first and just take a look at his skill kits, he will, for Purgatory on that first skill, attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. Whenever I see turn meter control, especially when you're pulling a champion early game, I normally use a comparison to my girl Diabolus. She's campaign farmable, number one, but it also gives you an opportunity to kind of keep in your mind where the champion may fall for your particular account. Now, what set him apart for me is the second statement. Has a 60% instead if the target is under a HP burn debuff. Whenever you're coming in to these types of manipulations, the skills that are conditional, the HP burn is nice. It's probably the first thing that catches your eye, but you have to go back and realize this champion isn't applying that skill. This champion is being enhanced if that skill has already been placed or that debuff has already been placed on an enemy. And so do you have someone on your team that does HP burn? If the answer is no, then this is a champion that you may hold on to instead of building right away. But if you pull certain champions, and we can definitely scroll through and go through the index, there are some champions that you will have access to early game that may actually make this skill worth it at a certain level. Now, second skill, Time's Undoing, has a 75% chance of decreasing the turn meters of all enemies by 15% when you are just trying to buy yourself time. When you still have champions that have not been booked, that's always important. So you haven't been able to decrease their cooldown. These skills can be important. This is the kind of crowd control you would be looking for. It will provide you extra time. It's going to provide you perhaps that extra turn in order to give your team an opportunity to go again. It's difficult to beat the speed game when you are early on. The gear that you're pulling, the lack of access to the forge for many of my viewers who have not made it to level 30. You're just now starting to get into the market. You're pulling enough champions for mystery shards for food, but you're still kind of pushing them through campaign. All of those things will make a huge difference for you. Now, on the flip side, he also fills the turn meters of all allies by 15%. There are champions that do a little bit more, but you can get this up to a 100% chance and you can bring it down to a 3-turn cooldown. If you pull an epic champion and their ability is only accessible at 4, 5, or 6 turns, even after being booked, keep in mind it's going to be harder to book an epic champion when comparing yourself to a rare champion. In this game, you will most definitely have access to way more rare books than you will epic and even legendary books. So as you're pulling champions and you get extremely excited, keep in mind that sometimes the strength of that champion is locked away until you are actually able to go in and book them properly. Last but not least, because he's not extremely book heavy, you have Heavenly Flames. Has a 75% chance of placing an HP burn debuff on all enemies for 5 turns. Places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 3 turns. The main work I've done with this particular champion is running him during campaign. I'm running him along with food. I put him in my most basic of gear just so that little tab does not continuously pop up. Plarium, the thing is like a stalker. If you run a champion through anything, and if they are not fully geared up, it will remind you a million times. And so you end up just tossing whatever gear you have available. The biggest weakness of this account, I pulled some very strong champions really early on, but I've had to wait a considerable amount of time because though my team can go through certain levels when it comes to campaign, I am making my way to brutal, trying to get my, to the point of end stage brutal to start farming that area for quicker food resources and just being able to have that experience. And it's not going to happen right away. So as you're building out epics, you start thinking about that. Now, kit-wise, Mordecai keeps it pretty simple. I haven't been just blown away by his particular skill level, but I will show you this. When you are running him, for example, we've made it to brutal. We're working our way through. This account is just on Tilshire. And so let's say I want to pull these guys out, pretty much know what they can do. Let's slap in, we'll keep it simple. We'll just slap in a sniper and maybe a Soban Boyer. Let's take someone who everyone's kind of in a different place. When I'm running this champion, taking a look at the level of my enemies, he's going to throw out some niceness. Like that HP burn comes in handy. Being able to clear waves is going to be extremely important. And if you're able to book him down to a certain point, throwing out that decreased turn meter right there, he will not be the first one to die on this team, of course, as you're running through. His hits are going to be just enough for the particular level where we are. Now, when people are thinking about and giving advice on whether this champion is eligible to book, whether it's a champion you would 6-star, what they're thinking about is in-game viability. The question becomes, how far do you want to take a particular account? At the end of the day, how far do you plan on taking your accounts? Is this your account that you're going to stick with year after year? Just kind of what you're thinking. And we're looking at his overall attack power. It's not going to blow you away. He's not the lowest, of course. He's not extremely squishy at this point. But if we're looking here, Galactus going to do a lot more work on this team than Mordecai would. Now, let's move it forward. If we take Galect out, and we're going to soften this team just a little bit. Let's throw in a 4-star Armiger and see how we do on this next one. And as you can see, can you progress with this champion? The answer is yes. If you are using the average epic champion, able to put him in some gear, Armiger goes down first. I'm not even sure if he is fully laid out. And this will kind of give us an idea. We're probably going to die in this battle, but I want you guys just to pay attention to the activity level. So he's now by himself. I don't expect him to really make it through. If he makes it through this wave, not the second wave. But you're going to find that based on what you can place on your champion and based on the amount of time he can buy himself, he can make it through certain areas, right? Not going to do too much, but he does have the ability to hold out as long as he has a strong support. Now let's go back. And this is what I'm always trying to avoid. And I don't think Soulblunt Warrior has any. Nope, she's always missing a chest plate. So I'm just going to literally smack a chest plate on my girl because she is not currently the focus of this video. So let's just toss her in something. Oh, I just replaced the wrong thing. I hate when I do that. All right. So we're going to just pop her into something and we'll go back through gear because gear is another thing that you're going to run into as an issue quite often. But we're going to take him out. We're going to go back a little bit stronger. I would love to see him and Diabolus work this out at the same time and see how this goes. And the point is not to have like this huge moment, but to show you that these champions can hold their own. Now, if you pull Mordecai and you were lucky enough to get him at level 15, you are running through levels like no return. When I first pulled this champion, I'm like, wow, I don't hear very much about him. But when I saw the HP burn, I'm thinking about this 100%. And I didn't have another champion with HP burn. And it's why I'm always saying, what other champions do you currently have in your accounts? My top 12 champions are the ones that are being built out. And for this account, I'm preparing myself to build extremely, quality at this level, tag team, arena teams. So I'm needing those champions to fill out the 3 waves based on what I want them to do. Beyond that, every other champion is considered to be vaultable or they're being used as food, especially those champions that are campaign farmable, depending on if I already have one of them in my account. So just by adding Diabolus with that control, and we'll see, because he won't make it long at this end by himself, because he's not built out to survive this one. If you added masteries to this particular champion, it's going to change the way that he plays. Now, coming in, Diabolus is doing more damage, of course. She's also 5-star. Taking a look at defense, they're hitting neck and neck. And this is a champion that's at a quote-unquote higher level than a campaign farmable champion. Same can be said for Sniper. These are 2 that I will take to the end of most of my accounts, only because they're easy to access, extremely easy to book out, but it stops and make you put that value, that weight on that epic champion. Now, if we go back and we're taking a look, there's that beautiful reminder that we love so much. The same can be said about when I pull Check the Windring, I got excited because I've heard about this guy from so many videos. I've seen kind of, what he does and was really excited. His reviews, I'll be honest, his reviews do not let you down. But once again, I placed him in lifesteal, some other gear at random just to kind of hold myself over. Now that we're doing the championships and the tournament that does, particular factions, this guy has come in clutch for me, what he's able to do. And when you're looking at skill level, this is another thing. But baby, when I tell you, my boy has his library card updated. I mean, using it, going in, like he doesn't even go inside anymore. He uses the drop box outside. But if we take a look, we come back to HP Burn. And HP Burn is one of those skills that in certain dungeons, I absolutely want to master it based on the other champions I can surround these champions with. So with when you're looking at this particular champion, Devour All Hope attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of decreasing the duration of one random buff if the target is under an HP burn debuff. So putting him and Mordecai together, you can kind of see the back and forth. Also has a 30% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15% if they are under a freeze debuff. This always makes me think of Ice Golem. This makes me think of the champions that I run in that particular area. I don't run into this very often. I kind of think of different levels of Doom Tower this may apply to early on. And then you start looking at the increase in damage you can add by 20%, as well as the increased buff debuff chance by 20% as well. So you're getting this up to a 50%. Okay, I can see it. Places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. I can appreciate it, but I can only get this down to a 4-turn cooldown. And majority of the books you're going to apply to him right away are going to go to that first skill because it is extremely book heavy. I respect this one, especially if I could just come in and select where my books would go. I would probably go toward most champions' 2nd or 3rd skill to make that happen. Coming back in, Frostfire Gale attacks all enemies, has a 70% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense. Wow. How would you know? Has a 70% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose defense is equal to or higher than their attack. So on this one, we can take it down to a 3-turn cooldown. We can get this up to a 90% chance, which is, I mean, they could have gave my boy that extra 10%. You already got him there. But that one kind of runs. Okay. He does have this illustrious skill here. Twisted Hunger, which is the passive, heals all allies by 5% of their max HP every time an enemy under an HP burn debuff gets a turn. Fills the turn meters of all allies by 10% every time an enemy under a freeze debuff gets a turn. The good thing about this passive, because this passive is kind of impressive, especially when we're thinking about accounts that are level 50 and under. These are the champions that swoop in and save you. These are the ones that will provide even Galect the extra stretch, your ultimate Death Knight, that extra turn that they're looking for. It's the type of control that you see, you acknowledge, and you kind of want for your team. And then he comes in with the aura of increasing allied defense in all battles by 25%. This is one of those champions you would love to ascend, but here's the other thing. When you are thinking about, I want to unlock that passive, I want to unlock this skill, I want you guys to pay attention to this, which normally is not an issue if I'm running on other accounts. But for this account, guess what? I don't run through very many keeps. It's one of my limitations. And actually when the red keep comes open, I really don't think about it. One of the rules I have for another account is I run a different keep every single day. I take at least 20 of my multi-battles and use within the keep. And it's extremely different here. There are certain areas where I have 300 plus potions because I hold myself to that rule because I really wanted to know, did it make a difference? And what you're going to notice is if this is just to get them to 3-star, imagine what's going to be needed to take this champion to 5-star. Now, can you see the difference when you're running them on a team? And the answer is going to be yes. So let's go in. We're going to pop him back on a team. And I'll go back in and rerun these particular areas anyway. So let's pop him in because you see where we left off and see, does it make a difference when running him with a different kind of champion? And I probably should have kept Sniper and took out Soul Bonvoyeur, but you kind of see the difference with these two going in tandem with each other as well. Now, for them, building up tankiness and support is a big one. This is also an account that does not have a reviver. If you have not pulled a reviver yet, that is an absolute game changer. If you've been with this channel for any amount of time, you guys know I have an extremely soft spot in my heart for Dur the Hungerer, one of my favorite revivers in the game. I know there are champions that do it a little bit better, but when I say my girl has been tried and true, absolutely the best champion I have ever fully mastered, ever booked out, and I would highly recommend. Pulled her from a shard pool and have not regretted it yet. Now, when we get to the end on this particular round, taking a look at Diabolos is probably about to go down. Throwing out, I believe that was that second attack there. And then we get to this ending. Decreasing that turn meter. It's going to make a little bit of difference. Heal reduction won't really matter. We don't have a healer. Everyone's going for Mordecai at the moment. Mordecai is now out, and Achak the Windring is going to be left all by his little lonesome. I don't think my boy's going to make it when they start throwing unkillables, but he has an attack I've seen every now and then that kind of pops up. And what you're thinking to yourself is, man, if I had one more champion that could provide some support for him, this would be pretty good. And depending on how much damage, nope, he's not going to have the hugest attack amounts in the gear that he's in, but he can protect himself, and that's going to make the difference for this one. And even at this level, he's going to squeak out this particular level. And it's coming down to the importance of gear. So last but not least, on this particular account, I told you guys those epics. We looked at Mordecai. We looked at Achak the Windring. We're going to go to Ugo. Ugo is one of those I absolutely almost fell out of my seat. This is an epic pool that I was just pulling shards for CVC, and I did not expect my girl to come out and come through. Like, it just speechless. I've heard so much about this particular champion. I mean, my girl is pulling this drum like no return. But Ugo is one of those. I think it's a girl. Is it? Yeah, gotta be a girl. It's a bra top. Let's go for it. Ugo is one of those average gear. But man, this kit kind of touches your spirit. And we'll hit these reviews. When I say reviews are reflective of the solidness of this champion, I very much agree on the little time that I've had to run my girl. Black Hand attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. The chance increases by 5% for each alive enemy. And you can increase damage by 20% on this one. This is a champion. If you did not come into the game when Deliana was one of your, guaranteed legendaries, if you did not start with Kale, if you do not currently have a champion that performs leech, this girl goes hard. Leech is one of those, if you add leech to HP burn, it changes the way in which your gameplay looks. It allows that team to run so much smoother. Not extremely book heavy on this first skill, which is appreciated. For an epic, not horrible on the second one. We can bring Maelstrom Rack down to a 3-turn cooldown. This one will attack all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 50% chance of placing a block buff debuff for 2 turns. The chance of placing the block buff's debuff increases by 5% for each alive enemy. If you place Ugo on a team, if you're lucky enough to have an unkillable team, if you're lucky enough to have a really good support champion, just the fact that her allies are there, you can have an increase, anywhere from 5, 10, 15%. So you're looking at who you surround this champion with. The damage can be increased by 15%, getting us to a place we appreciate. That buff debuff chance can be increased by 25% as well. And then the skill can be brought to a 3-turn cooldown. So this one for longevity, for longer battles, I found her to be really helpful. For areas in certain dungeons, she's been extremely helpful too. Ugo's Brew, if we put this on a 4-turn cooldown, removes all heal reduction debuffs. When you hit level 20 and above for dungeons, when you hit level 15 and above in certain keeps, the heal reduction becomes huge. Then removes one random debuff from all allies. Then heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. If all allies are dead, revives them with 50% HP. Let me go back. Because this one right here, this one, if all allies are dead, so you are the last Mohican, last little soldier, you will revive everyone with 50% HP, then fills your turn meter by 50% instead. Huge. So either you're going to get the removal of that heal reduction, or I'm going to just revive everybody and bring you back. And if you're coming in with like a Roscar at the tower, throwing a shield on everyone, buying you a little bit of time, this can change the way you're able to move through those longer battles. This heal can be increased by 20%. And again, the skill placed on a 4-turn cooldown. When it comes to Ugo, you're looking at masteries. The first thing I thought of when I saw this champion, I want to run this champion and I want to master this champion out, because that skill could be an absolute game changer. And let me show you kind of what I mean. Even just running through areas of campaign, you see people that will pull up and they'll go to, Ice Golem 20, guys, it is no way. There are certain areas of the game I no longer even access. Like, don't even think about it. So I just haven't gotten there yet. And so when I show you guys campaign, I'm trying to show you an area where this is where I am at this point. This is what I personally have going on. And so these are the areas that I access on a regular basis. I want to give these guys a chance to shine. So I'll switch those two out. Not my strongest team. No, this is not how I would build this team. But I just want to give a chance for you guys to kind of compare what these three epics are able to do. Now, the other thing, especially when I'm running campaign, and these are levels that you will run over and over again. And I highly recommend, if you are new to the game, use campaign as a chance to slow down. Sometimes I go down to, instead of 2 times, a 1 time kind of auto rate, so I can see what my champions are doing and really pay attention to what order I want to place them in, kind of pay attention to teammates or other champions they work best with, skill-wise. And you start noticing, this guy is really, really productive here, not as productive here. The suggestions as far as equipment or artifacts or gear to use on a champion can be a good starting or jumping off point, but you're going to pick up pretty quickly based on who you want the champion to work with, exactly what stats you want to improve compared to those you can wait on for a while. Now, going through the waves, they've done that much quicker this turn. Nobody's been sacrificed thus far. You can definitely tell the difference in play with these three. Diabolus is still sitting, of course, at full health. So my girl is not impacted right now. And that's the other difference that you're going to see. Before, we were dying at the level before this one. And so being able to see these champions kind of run and have a little synergy with each other is pretty nice. And Shaman is going down. One of those champions, man, my girl Shaman gets some hate. She does get some hate. But if you pull, it's not Shaman. If you pull Shaman early enough, Shaman can make a difference. I will give you that. Diabolus is going to win the race. Mordecai comes in last. And then you can see at this point, Ugo is running straight with Achak, the Wandering. Looking at the defense, also taking a look at support. Really solid champion. This is a champion that I will 6-star. I will fully ascend. I will definitely master out. Achak the Wandering is, I can think of the team I want to run this guy on. I will at least 5-star him. I haven't decided if I would 6-star, but definitely 5-star, fully ascend, and would fully master this champion out. Because he's going to run on enough teams, he'll make it there. Mordecai is probably one of those I would take to a 5-star at this point. Unless I had a need arise, he would hit as a 5-star for me. I would ascend him as I went through, just from running different keeps, of course. And I'm interested what would happen if you placed a blessing on him. But guys, don't even take me to the blessing stage, because that's a whole different part of the game for me to kind of discuss. But let me know, how do you guys feel when you pull epics, especially multiple epics, extremely early game? Do you stop and kind of build those out and see the impact they would have on your team? Or do you kind of push that to the back and just let it wait until you feel like your account has come to a point that is ready for this particular champions? Let me know in the comments. I always love to hear from you guys. Don't worry, CBC, I do believe, is coming up next week. I am always on the countdown for that one. Running, of course, levels of campaign, kind of saving up resources. Where are you guys in the game? What is your clan kind of looking like? What is the activity level? I would love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. Just want to share some thoughts on these epics and what epics have hit your account to kind of change your thinking. I'll talk to you guys soon and happy gaming.